My name is Elise Hart. I'm 29 years old, and tonight I was supposed to die. The Greystone estate hadn't changed. Same cold marble floors, same sweeping chandelier above the dining table that had never seen a real family dinner. But this time, I wasn't 13, and I wasn't afraid. My mother, Claudia, wore her signature ivory silk and that same familiar perfume that always felt more like a warning than a welcome. She greeted me with a practiced smile, pressing her hands to my shoulders with the precision of someone adjusting a mannequin. "Elise," she said, her voice calm, almost kind. "You've grown sharper." That was her way of saying I looked like someone she couldn't control anymore. Dinner was a performance as always. My father, Charles Greystone, discussed defense contracts and acquisitions. My brother Callum, their golden son, wasn't there, but his presence filled the room anyway. They talked about him like he was a monument, not a man. Then came the wine. Claudia reached for the bottle with an elegance that made your skin crawl if you knew what she was capable of. "To your return," she said, pouring the dark red liquid into my glass. I lifted it, the stem steady between my fingers. The scent hit first. Then, the metallic tinge on my tongue, faint but unmistakable. Slow acting, clean, undetectable without training. My pulse didn't change. I let it coat my mouth, then set it down gently. And that's when I saw it. The flicker in her eyes, the readiness in her posture. My mother hadn't welcomed me home. She was waiting for me to collapse. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I hadn't come back as their daughter. They tried to erase me, but all they did was wake me up. The first thing I noticed when I woke was the smell-damp earth and something metallic, like rust, clinging to concrete. The cold bit through my clothes. Stone walls surrounded me. A single light bulb buzzed weakly above. I wasn't in my bedroom. I wasn't even in the main house. I was in the wine cellar. Someone had dragged my unconscious body down here. They thought I wouldn't wake up. They thought the poison would finish the job. But they underestimated the one thing they'd never bothered to ask about who I'd become when they abandoned me. My fingers twitched, sluggish but alive. No phone, no shoes, no jewelry. But they'd missed something. At my feet, lying forgotten on an overturned crate, was my butterfly hairpin steel core spring-loaded, a gift from someone who knew what it really was. I crouched in the dark, the cold seeping into my joints, and for a moment, just a moment, I let myself feel the weight of it. Not fear, not shock, memory. I was 14 again. Oil stains on my jeans, holding a trophy I had built with my own burned hands, a robotic arm that had taken me 3 months to design. I walked into the sitting room, hoping for a smile. Claudia looked at me like I was tracking mud across a white rug. "A Greystone girl doesn't tinker with machines," she said, her tone brittle. "You look like a mechanic's daughter." That night, they threw a celebration dinner for Callum. He had made the varsity tennis team. My trophy disappeared behind a row of encyclopedias, forgotten before the dessert plates were cleared. 2 years later, after another of his reckless escapades, they told me to lie to the police. "You're a minor," Charles whispered, gripping my wrist. "You'll get community service. Callum can't afford a blemish." I said no. That was when I became the problem child. That was when Claudia looked at me, not like a daughter, but like a variable gone wrong. I'd packed a single duffel that night, clothes and notebook, $42 in birthday money. No goodbye, no last word, just a slammed door and silence. And now here I was, full circle, back in the dark, back underground. But I wasn't the same girl they sent away. I wrapped my fingers around the hairpin, flipped it open, and went to work on the lock at the back of the cellar. My hands were slow, but they remembered. Each click was a heartbeat, each second a warning. This time, I wasn't leaving in tears. This time, I was walking out with my eyes open. The service door opened with a soft creak, letting in a sliver of pre-dawn air that stung my lungs like truth. I didn't look back at the estate on the cliff, didn't need to. I already knew what it was. A mausoleum. A museum of everything I was never allowed to be. I stole a car from the golf club down the road. A white sedan, nondescript, left unlocked by some executive too comfortable in his privilege. It got me as far as San Lucero, where I paid cash for a night at a roadside motel that smelled like mildew and disappointment. I locked the door twice, pushed a chair under the handle, and sat on the edge of the bed, still in my clothes. That's when the shaking started, not from the cold, from everything I'd spent a decade suppressing. The cellar, the voice in the dark, the way my father didn't even flinch when Claudia sentenced me with a smile. I forced it down, focused my mind. Assess, orient, decide, act. I needed help. There was only one person on this planet I trusted enough to call. Luca. He wasn't family. He was something better. The man who found me during my second year in the army, when I'd stopped speaking unless directly addressed, when I still slept with a blade under my pillow, and woke gasping from dreams I didn't tell anyone about. He never asked about my past, just saw what I could be and sharpened it. He had recruited me into a program no one talks about. The Quarry, a place designed to strip you bare and rebuild you into a ghost. At the Quarry, no one asked who your parents were. Only if you could lie under pressure, break a man without leaving a mark, and survive 3 days in the desert with nothing but a compass and a paperclip. I did more than survive. I adapted. And when I graduated top of my class, Luca didn't say congratulations. He just handed me a black badge with no emblem and said, "This will get you into places that don't exist. Try not to need it too often." Now I needed it. I used an encrypted burner to send one word, compromised. 10 minutes later, the phone vibrated. Elise Luca said, "Calm, no panic, no pity, report. Attempted termination. Perpetrators Charles and Claudia Greystone. Targeted poisoning. Detained relocated to substructure. Escaped. Silence, then understood. Protocol sanctuary is active. Secure location. Minimal movement. You're not alone." 4 words. You're not alone. They cracked something in me I didn't realize was still holding on. For 12 years, I hadn't heard those words spoken like a promise. Now they were the difference between running and returning fire. I leaned back on the motel bed, the neon light blinking against the curtain, and stared at the ceiling. They thought they had erased me. They hadn't even scratched the surface. By the next evening, I was seated in the glass-walled office of Anna Devlin, former federal prosecutor turned litigation saboteur. The kind of woman who made oil executives sweat with just a raised eyebrow. She didn't offer me tea. She offered strategy. After I laid out the facts, poisoning confinement escape, she leaned back temple, resting against her fingers. "They think you're dead," she said, not as a question, but as confirmation. I nodded once. Good. Then we have the one advantage they never plan for time. I expected her to ask about damages, maybe wrongful death. She didn't. "We're not suing for sentiment," Anna said, flipping open a folder. "We're going after what they care about: money power and the image that makes both possible." In less than 48 hours, her team unearthed a legal landmine. 6 months ago, the Greystone Family Trust had been amended. My name, previously listed as 1/3 beneficiary, was erased. My share had been quietly transferred to Callum. Anna slid a copy of the clause across the table. I read the paragraph twice before the words settled. Like lead, all executive family members must be free of current or pending domestic disputes that may compromise defense-related security or public confidence in contracted leadership. Translation: I wasn't disinherited out of spite. I was liquidated for optics. "They sold your silence," Anna said coldly, "so their $5 billion deal wouldn't fall through." I couldn't speak, not because I didn't understand, but because for the first time in my life, I saw the math from their side. They didn't just want me gone. They calculated the price of my existence and decided a missile contract was worth more. While Anna attacked the legal front, I turned to the forensic trail. I drove 3 hours east to meet a name on Luca's list, Vincent Rourke, retired crash analyst. Still carried himself like he didn't trust chairs. We met near the wooded turn where my family had staged my accident. The rental car they'd stolen was still parked by the embankment, crime scene tape limp in the breeze. Vincent crouched by the front grille, his expression unreadable. "They smeared blood on the steering wheel," he muttered. "Not yours. Type AB negative. Your O positive." He pointed to a tablet displaying airbag deployment data. Deployed before impact, that means remote trigger. He stood brushing dirt off his knees. Someone tried to frame you with tech they didn't fully understand. Then he showed me the footage, a grainy security video from a gas station a half-mile from the crash site. Time-stamped 7 minutes after the 911 call. A tall figure in a hoodie ran out of the woods and into a waiting SUV. For one brief second, the store's flickering light caught his face. Callum, my brother, the crown prince, the one they built empires around. He had planted the scene himself, and vanished into the dark. I wasn't surprised. But I was no longer hurt. Because hurt was something they no longer had the power to give me. Back at the motel, I connected to a secure satellite node, using the last piece of tech I'd ever taken from Langley, a compact military-grade relay I wasn't supposed to keep. All I wanted was the mission logs from Panama. That was my alibi. I'd been in the jungle, tracking a trafficking cell, on the exact day the family claimed I crashed my car. But when I tried to access the file, the screen flashed red. Access denied. File not found. My operational record had been scrubbed. Not hidden. Erased. The air in the room went still. A moment later, my burner buzzed. Luca! I picked up without a word. You're not going to like this, he said. His voice had shifted lower tight like coiled wire. Say it. The delete order wasn't from inside the agency. It was routed through a proprietary node attached to Greystone Defense HQ. Silence. Then, this isn't just family anymore, Elise. This is national security. My throat tightened. Not from fear, but fury. They hadn't just tried to kill me. They'd dragged the only clean thing I'd ever built my career, my honor, into their rot. They didn't just want to erase me. They wanted to erase the version of me that mattered. I stared at my reflection in the motel mirror. But I didn't see my own face. I saw Claudia's practiced serenity, Charles's cold calculations, Callum's cowardice, and behind all of it, the smirk of someone who believed I had no cards left to play. They were wrong. I pulled open my duffel bag, flipped through the pages of my old field contacts, until I landed on one name, Marcus Hale. He had been the lead auditor at Greystone Defense before he died in a car accident 5 years ago. Rumor said he'd found something big just before his file went cold. I didn't believe in accidents anymore. With help from Luca, I traced a location to a patch of woods outside a logging town in northern Idaho. No neighbors, no cell service. Perfect for a man trying to disappear. I found him burning firewood behind a rusted cabin, a pistol holstered at his hip. The eyes that met mine were sharp with suspicion, but not insanity. I raised my hands. I'm not with them, I said. My name is Elise Hart. Charles Greystone is my father. Claudia tried to kill me last week. He froze. The pistol didn't lower, but something in his posture changed. Inside, he said. The cabin was wall-to-wall chaos maps. Printouts, red string legal pads filled with numbers. It wasn't a home. It was a war bunker. I have proof he told me voice gravel rough. They buried me because I got too close. But I recorded everything. He reached into an old safe and pulled out a small voice recorder. I planted this in Charles's private office the day before I died. It's voice activated. He pressed play. And then I heard her. Claudia's voice calm as ever. The girl is a loose end. Eliminate her. No noise, no blood, just absence. I didn't flinch, because now I had my weapon. The courtroom was full before I even stepped inside. Journalists lined the back wall notebooks, open eyes sharp. The name Greystone still carried weight, but for the first time it carried stench too. I sat beside Anna Devlin, steady and silent. Across from us, Claudia Greystone wore white flawless and composed. Charles sat beside her, unreadable. Callum slouched at this end of the row, flicking through his phone like this was a traffic ticket. Their attorney, Damien Kessler, rose before the judge could finish adjusting her glasses. Your Honor, he said, all mock outrage, this is a meritless attack. Ms. Hart is emotionally unstable and motivated by resentment. We move for dismissal. Judge Whitlock didn't flinch. Sit down, Mr. Kessler. Ms. Devlin, proceed. Anna stood, clicked her laptop, and a document appeared on the courtroom screen. A CIA mission log, redacted, but legible in the parts that mattered. This proves that on October 4th, my client was on federal assignment in Central America, she said. The supposed car crash fabricated. Gasps swept the room. Then a man in a black suit stepped forward. Agent Rourke, Office of the Inspector General, he said. I confirm the document's authenticity. Anna gave the pause a beat to settle. Then came the second click. Claudia's voice spilled into the silence, cold and certain. Put the clip in the glove box. No blood, no trauma. We'll say she panicked and ran. Callum's eyes snapped up. Charles's face turned the color of wet ash. Judge Whitlock leaned forward. Is there more? There is. Anna said, then nodded toward the doors. They opened, and Marcus Hale walked in. Alive. Charles whispered no. Marcus took the stand and gave them the rest. The embezzlement, the bribes, the fake crashed the missing corpse. He ended with a single line. They erased me to save their deal. They tried to do the same to their daughter. Silence followed. And then the gavel fell. This court finds sufficient cause to open criminal proceedings against Charles Claudia and Callum Greystone on grounds of conspiracy fraud and attempted murder. The empire didn't shatter loudly. It cracked clean, deliberate final. And in that silence, for the first time, I wasn't the problem child. I was the consequence. Callum was sentenced to 25 years without parole. I visited him once. Not to forgive, just to be sure. He sat behind plexiglass thinner paler, wearing an orange jumpsuit that hung off him like dead skin. When he saw me, he looked almost relieved. "Elise," he said, voice cracking. "I'm sorry, I didn't move." "No, you're not," I replied evenly. "You're sorry you got caught." He looked down. "You never saw me as your sister," I continued. "Just someone in the way. A loose wire you thought they'd eventually snip." He didn't argue. Maybe he knew there was nothing left to defend. "I'm not here to give you peace," I said. "I'm here so you understand that I survived you." And then I walked away. Charles came next. He'd had a stroke shortly after the hearing. Now he sat in a private facility overlooking the Pacific, parked like a relic in a wheelchair, eyes blank. I didn't expect him to speak. He didn't. I placed his old brass Zippo lighter one he used to flick endlessly in meetings on the table beside him. It was worn smooth initials, faded. "You had a choice," I said softly. "You could have been a father. You chose to be a CEO." The silence between us stretched thin, brittle. I hope the contracts were worth it. I didn't wait for a reply. There was none to give, but it was Claudia who I saved for last. She was under house arrest, confined to the estate she once ruled like a throne. I found her in the sunroom, still pristine, her jewelry gone, but her arrogance intact. When she saw me, her face twisted. "You ruined everything," she hissed. "You ungrateful little curse." I didn't flinch. "No," I said, stepping closer. "I didn't ruin anything. I was the result. You taught me strength is survival, that love is a transaction, that appearances matter more than people." Her hands trembled, but not from age. "You taught me well, Mother." She laughed, sharp, bitter. "You think this makes you better?" "No," I replied. "It makes me free." She lunged to her feet. "You'll die alone, Elise. People like you always do." I studied her, the woman who once looked through me like I was glass. Better alone than hollow. I turned, walked out the same door she threw me through 13 years earlier. But this time, the cold air outside felt clean. This time, the silence wasn't exile, it was peace. They had lost everything, their company, their power, their illusions. And me, I'd lost the need for them. Not out of hate, but because I finally understood that some debts you don't collect. You bury them, and you build something better over the grave. 2 weeks after the trial, I resigned from the agency. No ceremony, no farewells. Luca handled the paperwork off the grid as always. We met one last time in a quiet diner off Route 62. He slid a plain envelope across the table. Inside, a new passport, a new name, a clean break. "You served your country well," he said. "Now serve yourself." I didn't answer, just nodded. He understood. I drove north until the road ended and the map blurred into pine. In the backwoods of Maine, I found a cabin. One room, no signal. A frozen lake beyond the trees. It was perfect. I bought it in cash, changed the locks, and exhaled. For days, I did nothing but walk, breathe, listen. At first, the silence felt like a test too, still too open. Then slowly it felt like mine. I planted vegetables in mismatched pots, adopted a golden retriever with sad eyes and called him Hale. Hung shelves for books I chose by instinct, not mission. No one knew where I was. That was the point. Sometimes the bad nights returned flashbacks, the jolt awake the cellar. But they faded faster now. No one was coming through the door. I was safe. Then one morning, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was the brass Zippo lighter I'd left with my father, now wrapped in a cloth. Tucked beside it, a card in Luca's handwriting. "Your legacy isn't what they left you, it's what you survived." I held it for a moment, remembered the weight of it in my childhood. But I didn't flick it open. I placed it in a wooden box stored high on a shelf. Some fire doesn't need feeding anymore. That evening, I brewed tea and sat on the porch with Hale curled at my feet. The sky stretched wide and gold over the lake. No sirens, no secrets. just breath and wind. They tried to erase me, frame me, bury me under their shame. But I endured. I outlasted every silence they forced on me. And now, in this quiet, I'm not hiding. I'm healing. They taught me survival was the only language worth speaking. I've learned peace has one too. And this time, no one else gets to write the ending.